Hey guys, it's Katie, and I'm here today to do the coffee book tag. I should technically say that I'm redoing it because I was tagged to do it again, and I liked it the first time. And I can link that up above if you want to see how things have changed, if they have changed. But this time I was tagged by Vendi at Caught Between Pages. And as I said, I think it's going to be a fun time to redo. And so let's just jump into the questions. Number one, Black. Name a series that's tough to get into but has hardcore fans. And I know what I said last time, and I'm actually going to stand by what I said before, and that is Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm not the hugest fan of the Kingkiller Chronicles. If you've been following my channels for quite some time, you would know that already. But I know so many people that are obsessed with it, that love it, and that kind of get into debates with me. And kind of, I get a little bit shamed for not liking it when I tell them that I don't as much. So, I mean, they're super hardcore fans, and I just am not a fan of the series. I just don't like Kvothe. He is literally the most irritating character I've ever come across, ever. That's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm just not a huge fan of him. And I just have this thing in my head. I mean, everyone always tells me, oh, you're not supposed to like him because that's the point of the series. And I'm like, okay, but if I don't like the main character, why do I want to continue reading his story? So I'm enough of a fan that I'll continue on with the series just because I'm a completionist and want to know what happens. But I really also just don't care about Kvothe and his life. Um, so I don't get the hype surrounding the series, and so that one's just not super high on my list. Number two, Peppermint Mocha. Name a book that gets more popular during the winter or a festive time of year. For me, weirdly enough, I tend to gravitate more towards specific genres than I do specific books during a specific time of year, and that's kind of like mystery, thriller, historical fiction kind of thing. I tend to, for whatever reason, really like to read Dan Brown books over the winter months. I don't know why, but that's kind of what I'm going with, because I mean, there's your typical, Christmas Carol, etc., all of the well-known Christmas books, Charles Dickens kinds of books that are really popular. But as I said, I also seem to gravitate to like Dan Brown. I don't know why. It's something I've kind of realized over the last couple of years. And last year he came out with a new book, and I read that over the Christmas season. So I think that's what I'm going to say. Number three, Hot Chocolate. What is your favorite children's book? That's tough. There are a lot of children's books out there that I really like. I love the BFG. I love Roald Dahl, and I really enjoy his works. Of course, I love The Hobbit, because that's technically a children's book, even though it could also be seen as more of YA. I don't know how to classify it, actually. And then things like the Magic Treehouse books, love those. Like, just that whole series, it just shaped me in a really big way. But as for a singular book, I think I'll probably just say the BFG. Number four, Double Shot of Espresso. Name a book that kept you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. This answer is probably not going to have changed much from last time. I don't remember exactly what I said, but Historian by Elizabeth Kostova definitely kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I love that book. It's very suspenseful and very, just kind of in a weird way, action-packed for the genre that it is, and I just could not put it down. And I mean, it took me a little bit of time to get through, but I really, really, really enjoyed that book, and it was one, as I said, that I had a hard time putting down because of the suspense and all the things that were happening, and it was very fast paced, and yeah, I just really, really liked that book a lot. 5. Starbucks. Name a book you see everywhere. Right now, there are a lot of books that are coming out, and I feel like I've seen The Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor literally everywhere. That's the second book for the Strange the Dreamer series, whatever it's called, and I think it's just because it's a new release. I've just literally seen it everywhere. So yeah, planning on reading it at some point. I still have to read Strange the Dreamer because, you know, I'm a slow reader and I have like no time for anything. So yeah, that's definitely one that I have seen a lot of lately. Number 6, That Hipster Coffee Shop. Give a book by an indie author a shout out. I'm really bad at this kind of a thing. I think last time I said Charlotte Ashe. She's got a really, really cool, fun fantasy series out there called the Heart of All Worlds trilogy, which I think book 3 is coming out this year. But I think I'm also going to shout out a fellow booktuber. Emma Rosen put out her book called Milk, and it's all about breastfeeding. And just when you hear her talk about it, she's so passionate and just so interesting, and I really, really enjoy hearing her talk about her book. I mean, it's normally not a topic I'd gravitate towards, but it's definitely a book that I consider picking up because of how interested and how passionate she is when she's talking about it. 7. Oops, I accidentally got decaf. Name a book you were expecting more from. So if you don't know this already, because I haven't really talked about it much on my channel, it's not worth doing a review for or anything, but I read Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. You know, it's the James Bond series, the first book in the series or whatever, and I read it and I was sorely disappointed. It was so underdeveloped. It was just written really poorly. I just didn't care about anything that was going on. I came like a hair length away from DNFing, and I was just bored. And so I was just expecting it to be a lot like the movies are, you know, really fleshed out, really action-packed, really interesting, and it was none of that. It was misogynistic, it was boring, the characters weren't fleshed out, the writing was just frankly garbage, and I just was not a fan. I was so disappointed. I was going in expecting to kind of find something new to enjoy, but instead I didn't find that. So yeah, I was definitely disappointed in that. Number 8, which is the last question, and it's The Perfect Blend. Name a book or a series that was both bitter and sweet, but ultimately satisfying. And for this I had to think for a minute, but ultimately I decided to go with my go-to series, and that is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. It's a very emotionally impactful series. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster in general. There's a lot of very angering things that happen. There's a lot of really, I don't want to say happy, but satisfying things. And I mean, while the ending wasn't what I know the ending is very polarizing, but I really liked how the series was ended. I think it was the perfect way to end it, and I think it was ultimately the most satisfying ending we were going to get out of that series. So I think that's what I'm going to say for that. All of the questions. I guess I will tag 1 or 2 people. I'm going to tag Shelby from Read and Find Out, and I'm going to tag Jess from Jess's Lit Life.